5 weeks ago, I said this.
I'll save my money and put it towards a Pocket 4 when it's hopefully released in the next year.
So why now do I have this in my hand? Well, in this video, we're going to take a look at the brand new DJI Osmo Action 5 Pro action camera, my first impressions and some footage from my first few usages of it. I'm going to explain why I did a total 180 on my previous statement where I said I wouldn't upgrade, but was it a mistake on my part and should I have stuck with my original gut instinct? Well, let's get into that in this video. And let me start by letting you know that unlike most other reviews currently flooding YouTube on the Action 5 Pro, I did not get this camera sent to me and I've not been sponsored by DJI in any way. I paid for this with my own money, and as a result I can be totally honest about my thoughts and impressions of it. I pride myself on being a real consumer that spends real money on the products that I review, and if you like that type of review then please consider subscribing to the channel. In this video I'm going to tell you about the reasons why I decided to upgrade despite being adamant that I wouldn't, tell you exactly what I think DJI have improved in the Action 5 Pro, and some things that in my opinion seem to have taken a step back compared to the Action 4, which to be honest may lead to me returning this back to DJI. I purchased the standard bundle package since I already had the Action 4 Adventure Pack, so all of the accessories like the selfie stick, additional batteries and the curved mount are all totally fine to use with the Action 5 Pro. And this is actually the first great thing about the DJI ecosystem. Having backward and forward compatibility of their accessories and batteries is a huge positive compared to the likes of GoPro. I also have the ND filter set which fits the Action 5 Pro, although you do need to remove the rubber grip ring around the outside of the lens for it to fit. So let's start with what you get as part of the standard bundle. So in addition to the Action 5 Pro, you get one Osmo Action Extreme Battery Plus, which is now 1950 milliamps. You get the Osmo Action horizontal and vertical protective frame. You get a quick release adapter, the curved adhesive base, one locking screw, and the USB Type-C charging and data transfer cable. The standard bundle costs £329 British here in the UK. And if you don't already know, my use case for the Action 5 Pro is for running related content and making lifestyle and family holiday videos. I'm fairly invested in the DJI ecosystem with a Pocket 3, an Action 4 and several DJI drones. I run for the most part early in the morning, so I need a camera that has reasonable low light capabilities. In my previous video, I stated that one of the only things that could persuade me to upgrade from the Action 4 would be a move to a 1-inch CMOS sensor, like that is used in the DJI Pocket 3. I said this because the larger sensor in the Pocket 3 is considerably better in low light than the Action 4, and it would be advantageous to me if the Action 5 Pro had the same low light capabilities. However, a move to a 1-inch sensor in an action camera was always unlikely, and my perception was that even with the advances in AI capabilities, the low light improvement wouldn't be enough compared to the Action 4 for it to make financial sense if they stuck with the same 1/1.3-inch CMOS sensor that they had in the Action 4. Now I'm going to hold off saying what my impression of the low light performance is in this until later in the video, but let's first talk about a few things that I like. Okay, number one, the improved battery life of up to 4 hours on a single battery. Now in the real world, if you're filming at 4K and 30 frames a second or more, then it's likely to be a fair bit less than that. But even conservatively, if we said 2.5 hours, it's still fantastic for such a small camera like this, and it's a clear improvement on the already impressive times that we had on the Action 4. However, this improvement has come at a cost, which we're going to cover later in this video, but let's just say that it's been a big gamble on DJI's part because they compromised elsewhere to achieve this. The all-new sensor, still 1/1.3-inch CMOS sensor, but this time we've got 40 megapixel sensor, up from only 10 megapixel on the Action 4. This should in theory allow better quality footage and better photos with a 40 megapixel camera, and we should have more ability to crop in without significantly compromising the video quality. The sensor seems to have better dynamic range than the Action 4, but I think the 13.5 stops that DJI suggests is a little optimistic to say the least. The ISO range has also been extended to 51,200 from 12,800 in the Action 4. The sound when paired with the DJI Mic 2 is fantastic, and with the move to Bluetooth 5.1 it allows multiple connections, so that means that you can pair up two separate mics at one time. The mic pairs automatically once you've set it up and it works flawlessly. The screens have been upgraded to OLED touchscreens on both the front and the back, which are now brighter and slightly larger than they were before in the Action 4. The screen is easy to see even in bright conditions, which is great. The LCD screens on the Action 4 was already good, but the OLED screens here on the Action 5 Pro are better. And for the first time, we see internal storage on the Action 5 Pro, giving us 47 gigabytes of storage, as well as the ability to add further terabyte of memory via the micro SD. Well done to DJI here, because it gives us reassurance that if for some reason we manage to forget our SD card, or if it becomes corrupt while you're out in the field, you can still record several hours of footage with the internal memory. We now have subject tracking, which isn't something I expect to use on a non-gimbal camera, but there are some situations that I can see where it would be useful. This is a feature that is great on the DJI Pocket 3, but I can't see many people listing this as something that is particularly useful on the Action 5 Pro. The stabilization, in my opinion, is pretty much the same as it was on the Action 4, with the same horizon leveling and balancing capabilities. Now, the most attractive upgrade for me in my use case was the well-advertised enhanced low-light capabilities. The reason I decided to purchase the Action 5 Pro was because I need a camera that either has a big enough sensor or AI capabilities to allow me to vlog running early in the morning, around 30 minutes either side of sunrise. Now, I don't expect the same low light capabilities as we would get on a full frame mirrorless camera, but I need the footage to be good enough that it doesn't appear washed out and dirty with too much noise in it. The addition of night mode, or super night as DJI are calling it, together with the improved sensor and better dynamic range, really did intrigue me. The Action 4 was already decent, but by no means great in low light, so the addition of a dedicated night mode with a better sensor and more dynamic range should have in theory given me the next best thing to what I would have wished for, which would have been that 1-inch CMOS sensor that would give me the same performance in low light as that I get on the Pocket 3. I've now had a chance to test this camera in a variety of conditions, from very dark to bright daylight, in both D-Log and normal colour profiles. The results that I'll take you through now are, let's just say, underwhelming and disappointing to say the least. But first, let me address a topic that very few reviewers have mentioned, but is likely contributing to the disappointing results that I've noticed so far. In the Action 5 Pro, we've now got a maximum bitrate of 100 megabits per second, and this is down from 130 megabits in the Action 4. DJI say it's a result of the new chip technology that they put in here, which has helped with extending the battery life and to stop this thing overheating. After doing a bit of research, I found out that at 4K 30p, the bitrate is actually nearer 60 megabytes per second, and 80 megabytes per second if you're recording at 4K 60p. Now, in the same settings in the Action 4, it's running at 130 megabits per second. It seems that DJI have been so keen to find a way to achieve the longest runtime of any action camera in the market that they've sacrificed something way more important here, because as I will show you, the image quality, especially in darker areas in low light, is muddy and pretty much unusable. Okay, so in the first video, I went for a walk with my son in a local woodland area. It's pretty dense, but it was about 30 minutes before sunlight, so I was confident, based on the glowing reviews that this camera had, it would do a decent job in regular video mode, let alone super night mode. Now, everything looked fine on the back of the OLED display. It was only when I got home and looked at the images on my iMac that I saw just how terrible the quality was, with huge artifacts, pixelation and muddiness. In night mode, the image was brighter, but the overall image was worse. We had huge noise levels, huge artifacts, and the image just looked completely over sharpened and, well, simply horrible. Once we got out of the woods, the quality improved slightly, but it was still just before sunset, so the ambient light was still pretty reasonably high. The next morning I took the Action 5 Pro out on my morning run. It was about 20 minutes either side of sunrise when I went out, and it was pretty dark. I was using rock steady stabilization, and during the run I used a mixture of 4K 50p for the D-Log footage that I took and 4K 30p for the super night mode. The results were almost enough for me to put the Action 5 Pro back in its box and return it there and then. It's not only the disappointment of the muddy footage, but the stabilization jitters rendered almost every file that I took on that run unusable. I do understand that image stabilization has a hard job in low light, but this is an action camera with a pro label and huge hype around the night capabilities of it. I try to keep the camera as still as possible when I run, but even then, the jitters from the stabilization and the muddy footage is some of the worst I've ever seen out of an action camera. I then took it out on a run during the afternoon the next day, and as expected, the results were significantly better. The image quality is good, and I'm happy with how the camera performed. But I wouldn't say the image quality is any better than we had on the Action 4. There may be a little bit better dynamic range in contrasty areas, but the colours are at best the same as the Action 4. As it was on the Action 4, the white balance is absolutely spot on thanks to the forward-facing dedicated detection unit for white balance at the front of the camera. I also tested the camera in low light with my kids flying the new DJI Neo around, and the camera did a pretty good job there. It was about 45 minutes before sunset, so the light levels were pretty low, but nothing too crazy. The Action 5 did acceptably well, but I didn't buy this camera to stand around with it. I purchased it specifically for a use case of running in low light. In my final footage, I amended the super night settings from normal to sports, as I thought that that may help. I left for my 45-minute run about 20 minutes prior to sunrise so that I could get some footage before and after the light levels increased. It was very overcast in the morning and the ambient light was very, very low even once the sun had risen. The results are for the most part the same, with anything lower light levels than at sunrise producing unusable video files.
Okay, so quick sound test for you guys. This is the sound just using the onboard microphones in the Action 5 Pro. Just finished my morning run. It's about 7:15 in the morning. Sunrise was at 10 to 7, so we're about half an hour after sunrise. We're currently in night mode because it's very overcast this morning, but I thought I'd just give you an example of what the sound sounds like with the onboard microphones. I personally always use the DJI Mic 2, so I wouldn't usually use this for audio, but what do you think? I think based on my tests it's very similar to the onboard mics on the 4.
The jitters in footage is so distracting that I would say the only way to get anything like decent video quality in low light conditions, either pre-sunrise or after sunset with this camera in its current form, is to have it on a tripod and not moving, which totally defeats the object of an action camera. So my experience and the various tests that I've done so far has left a pretty bitter taste in my mouth and feeling that I really should have stuck with my gut and not purchased this camera. The only thing really pro about this camera at the moment is the sound when it's paired with the DJI Mic 2, but you could actually do that on the 4 anyway, albeit only with one mic on the 4. There is a lot to like about this camera, but for me and what I need it for, it's simply a huge disappointment in its current form. However, there's potentially some hope on the horizon, as there are rumours that DJI will soon release a firmware update to address the low megabyte per second issue with a new high-speed action mode. Now, compromising some of the battery life for quality is something that I know every DJI user would be happy with to achieve better image quality. I do think DJI need to act fast on this because soon Insta360 will release the Ace Pro 2, which promises 8K resolution with a dual chip which will deliver game-changing image quality. Insta360 Ace Pro already has the best low light performance of any action camera, and the Ace Pro 2 is looking to take that further. So DJI needs to fix the megabytes per second issue and hopefully work on some firmware that will go some way to addressing the jittery footage in low light for anything other than static video. So should you buy it? Well, at the time of making this video on September 24th, 2024, I would say hold and don't buy this camera just yet. Wait to see what the first and second rounds of firmware will address, because I'm sure that DJI are going to work on fixes and offer solutions to the problems that we're seeing. I would also suggest waiting to see what we will get with the Insta360 Ace Pro 2, especially if low light performance is a must-have for you. Look for unsponsored and ungifted reviews of performance of both the Action 5 Pro and the Insta360 Ace Pro 2, as that is where you're going to find the most unbiased real-life feedback that you can rely on to make educated decisions on if you should purchase either of those cameras. If and when DJI release a firmware update, I will do another video on my experience and have my fingers crossed that will be a lot more positive than this video, because I am a big DJI fan. If not, I fear that the Action 5 Pro will go down as a step backwards rather than forwards in the Action series. As always, if you found any value in this video, then consider dropping a thumbs up and a like on the video. If you use the Action 5 Pro, or if you have any other comments or advice, then please do drop them in the comments so that other viewers can use them and help them make a decision on if the Action 5 Pro is right for them. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.